Hello and welcome to another book talk review with ASC Book Reviews. Today I will be book talking Between Two Shores by Jocelyn Green. The Bible verse that Jocelyn puts with this book is Mark 10:45. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. Now, this book is sectioned into two parts, and part one I absolutely loved. There's not too much horror or what I like to call gory details, or too much of the blood and the horrific parts of history that sometimes I felt like this author puts in some of her previous books that I've read from her. There wasn't any of that though in this first part, and it was really, really good. I love the majority of the characters and how Jocelyn kept giving little breadcrumbs of the secrets that were surrounding these characters and kept just opening me up to finding another layer of what had happened and what was happening and how it affected the present. And she also really married the past and the present very well in part one. I felt like I was ready for more memories or more of what had happened in the next chapter. I was ready for the next chapter, and I wasn't wanting to skip certain chapters and jump ahead and then go back because I just had to see what was going on only in the present or only in the past. So I really think that the flow is fantastic between the past and the present. I really loved how she did that. And I loved the historical detail and all the historical details and all the things that I learned. But however, I became torn through part two. It's here that it kind of blew my mind at times, which I loved that part. I was totally left wondering what was possibly going to happen next with these characters because of decisions that the male lead had made and stuff that Samuel had done, and the secrets were coming out, and I did not even know where it was going to happen. It really blew my mind, and I really loved that part, and that I just was feverishly reading to see what was going to happen and kept turning the pages to see how this was going to work out. However, I would like to warn you that I feel this next part might be considered a spoiler, though I also think that this needs to be mentioned. So I'll leave it up to you to choose if you'd like to continue hearing, and because this may be a spoiler. For those of you that are still listening and want to know, this is not a typical romance. It really isn't a romance at all, actually. Instead, this is a story about different kinds of love. And in the end, it's a story about siblings. I mention this because since I wasn't prepared for this by reading the book description or anything, it kind of ripped into my own wounds about siblings, and it left me unsettled and raw in part two. And in the end, I wasn't too fond of Samuel, though I do love Catherine as a character still, and her sister. They became my favorite characters. And I really did like all the other characters, but I didn't really care for Samuel as a character. The ending of this book really left me torn, though, because on the one hand, it does end in a good place for my favorite characters, and it ends in a good place for the characters. And I loved the faith messages. I love how the sisters talk about the Lord, and they call him the great good God. And there's one scene when they speak about how Jesus has ransomed us. And that the way that Jocelyn wrote that is just so beautiful. And I loved that scene. That was probably my favorite scene of part two. And it's towards the end. But on the other hand, the end parts really left me wanting. I really felt like I wanted different things to happen, or it to end in a different way, or I don't even know. I was just left wanting. I think that I was more hung up on what Catherine went through because of Samuel than she was, which is funny, but I felt like she... I don't know. I just really couldn't connect to the way she handled things. I would have personally preferred things to be really different in big parts. From chapter 22 on to the end, I really wanted things to be different. Though, as I said, the face scene was great in there, and I loved how Jocelyn worked pieces of chapter 33 on as well. From 33 to the end, there were parts that I really, really loved and were really easy to connect for me. I also liked how parts of the story reflected that something that I've had problems with in some of the other books I've recently read and mentioned in my other reviews. There's parts in 33 that really show the difference between loving someone and enabling them. The balance between still loving someone and yet not skirting their problems and enabling the issue that really needs to be addressed. Lastly, if you're going to read this book, please make sure to read the author's note, or at least the very tail end of the author's note. I love, love, love it. I think that the songs that I would put with this are Look Up Child by Lauren Daigle. That one really, really touched my heart as I was reading this book. It kept coming up, and there were pieces that really reflect that song. I would also probably put Even If by Mercy Me, Confidence by Sanctus Real, and Before the Morning by John Wilson. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned because the next book I will be reviewing is A Bound Heart by Laura France.